As we come to inquire into God, we might ask the question, who is God? In a sense, this is the most important question. It's at least as important as the questions of whether there is a God or what the nature of God is. For as important as the existence and nature of God, there's the question of the identity of God, because this is a question that confesses our faith that God is not some abstract principle or faceless force, but a someone whom we can know, not just know about, but know in a personal way. And we can know God in a personal way because God knows us in a personal way, knows us more deeply than we know ourselves. The psalmist writes, "O Lord, you have searched me and know me. You know when I sit down and when I rise up. You discern my thoughts from far away. You search out my path and my lying down. You are acquainted with all my ways. Even before a word is on my tongue, O Lord, you know it completely. You hem me in behind and before and lay your hand upon me. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me. It is so high that I cannot attain it." The term that we use to speak of the extent of God's knowledge is omniscience. We might think of this abstractly and wonder what it would mean for a being to know everything. For example, can God know the square root of -1? Or can God know what my freely willed future actions will be? But the psalmist thinks of this concretely. He thinks of this in terms of God knowing him, of God guiding and guarding him on the path of life. The belief that God knows all, that God knows me, is not simply a source of intellectual puzzles, but of confidence that the uncertainties of life are all enfolded within God's creative, loving care. We may not be able to imagine what such knowledge is like, but at the heart of our belief about who God is the faith that what is unknown and unknowable to me is not beyond God's knowledge and power. The psalmist continues, "Where can I go from your spirit? Or where can I flee from your presence? If I ascend to heaven, you are there. If I make my bed in Sheol, you are there. If I take the wings of the morning and settle at the farthest limits of the sea, even there your hand shall lead me, and your right hand shall hold me fast. If I say, surely the darkness shall cover me, and the light around me become night, even the darkness is not dark to you. The night is as bright as the day, for darkness is as light to you." Another traditional attribute of God, in addition to omniscience, is what we call omnipresence. That is, God is in some sense present everywhere. Again, we might think of this abstractly and try and puzzle through how two things could occupy the same space, or whether this implies that God has some sort of physical presence. But again, for the psalmist, God's pervasive presence is something concrete. It is conviction that there is no place we can go to escape God, no place where we can hide from God, no place that is beyond God's justice and God's mercy. This, too, is beyond our capacity to imagine. Indeed, thinkers from Dionysius the Areopagite to St. Thomas Aquinas have argued that the traditional attributes of God are really the negation of the attributes of creatures. We human beings are limited in what we know. We have things we have not yet learned and things we're incapable of learning. So when we say that God is omniscient, we are saying that God is not subject to such limitation. We human beings always exist at a particular time and place. So when we say that God is eternal or omnipresent, we are saying that God is not restricted in that way because God exists beyond the constraints of time and space and is so present at every place and at every moment. Or we might say every place and every moment is always present to God. We human beings are limited in our power to act, and there always exists some unrealized potential in us, something yet undone. But God is fully actual and unlimited in his actions. And this is what we mean when we say that God is omnipotent, all-powerful. Such a way of existence may be, as the psalmist says, too wonderful for us to grasp. But what is too wonderful to grasp can still be a source of wonder. And this is what we are invited to do, to be filled with wonder at the power, wisdom, and goodness of God.